Good morning. My name is Patricia Levine, and I am a member of the Worship and Music Committee. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. If there are visitors with us this morning and you're unfamiliar with the building and you have questions, please reach out to one of the greeters. The first part of our service is recorded. Following the benediction, the recording will end. Then we will go to our candles section, which is not recorded. The service will be posted on our Facebook page, on YouTube, and on PAX TV. Given the concerns about COVID, we are not serving coffee or other beverages. If you wish to participate in fellowship, we are gathering here in the sanctuary. But we must remind you that we need to wear our masks and we need to be socially distant. There are people amongst us who are compromised and immunocompromised, and we want to be very protective and take care. Again, due to COVID, we will not be passing the basket for offertory. If you have donations, please place them in the basket, which is at the back of the sanctuary on the table. Or, we also accept online offerings, and if you want to learn more about that, you can visit our website. Welcome to our service this morning. Today, the service is entitled Journey to Selma, and is led by our minister, Reverend Arthur Lavoie. Our music program this morning is provided by Emily Browder Melville, and our technical director is Paul Melville. And we have a special treat this morning. We have Nowicki as our musical guest. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are on your journey, let us walk together this hour.
Good morning also. I'm the Reverend Arthur Lavoie. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I want to say a special word of welcome to any of you who are watching on PAC TV. We are now broadcast in 6 local communities and on YouTube and Facebook. So I want to extend a special welcome. I know this was a pretty cold morning, so some folks may not have wanted to come out this morning. I want to know that anyone watching online is a welcome part of this community, and we are delighted to have you with us this morning and to be part of what we share here at First Parish in Plymouth. Please know that you can visit our website at firstparishplymouthuu.org to find out more information about us, to have information sent to you, or to speak with myself or someone in our office. So please feel free to contact us if you would like more information. And also, there is a link on the website to make PayPal donations if you would like to contribute to the life and ministry of this congregation. Thank you.
One more thing, since we are all wearing masks, if you are not able to understand what we're saying, there are copies of the reading and the sermon on the back table that you can take with you. And now for the call to worship. In the early hours of Monday, March 8, 1965, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. dispatched a telegram that read, "In the vicious maltreatment of defenseless citizens of Selma, where old women and young children were gassed and clubbed at random, we have witnessed an eruption of the disease of racism, which seeks to destroy all of America. No American is without responsibility. All are involved in the sorrow that rises from Selma to contaminate every crevice of our national life. The people of Selma will struggle on for the soul of the nation. But it is fitting that all America helps to bear the burden. I call, therefore, on clergy of all faiths, representative of every part of the country, to join me for a minister's march to Montgomery on Tuesday morning, March 9th. In this way, all America will testify to the fact that the struggle in Selma is for the survival of democracy everywhere in our land.
I'd like everyone to invite everyone to stand and join in the words of our chalice lighting, which is printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to love one another. Thank you. So, good morning, Deb. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Today, I'm going to be talking with the adults about how important it is that we have the right to vote in this country and to choose who will run our town, who will run our state, our government. You know, I've been voting for many years now, as you may have too, and I always feel proud when I take take the time to find out about the people who are running and what they stand for. What's it like for you, Deb?
I remember feeling like I didn't have a voice and nobody wanted to listen to me. But when I walked in to vote, I didn't have to speak. I just voted and I got heard. And it meant so much to me that when each of my children became of age to vote, I brought them and I took pictures of them so they would always see their first day voting.
That's remarkable. It's also important to remember that even in this country, some people try to stop other people from voting. When Plymouth and the state of Massachusetts were first founded, for example, only white men who owned property were allowed to vote. They wanted to hold on to all of the power and thought everyone else was not smart enough to be able to make good decisions.
That's right, it wasn't until the Civil War that some black men were allowed to vote. Even then, many states put all kinds of crazy rules in place to prevent people of color from voting. And it wasn't until just 50 years ago, 50 years, that's like after I was born, that the country made voting rights for all people the law of the land.
And women weren't allowed to vote for a long time. The first Women's Rights Convention was held almost 175 years ago in upstate New York, Seneca Falls. I've been there. There's a great national park there, and it's a wonderful place to visit.
Well, I remember last year we talked about this when it was time to vote. And I remember realizing that women started to work for the right to vote in 1820. They didn't get the right until 1920. 100 years of work went into them getting to vote. And then it wasn't until 1965 that all people. I was born in 1963. How was that possible in my lifetime? Not everybody could vote. I am blown away at that idea.
Right. You know, and we all know there are a lot of difficult feelings that came out of our last national election. And we know that people in several states are trying to put restrictions on voting again. And that's real trouble, I think, for our democracy.
And if we think about what our UU principles are and voting, every single one of our principles says everyone deserves the right to vote. So we can't ever take for granted that we have that right. We have to work for it. We have a responsibility to use it. And we need to celebrate it.
That's good.
And now I'm going to take the children on a journey of learning and discovery and voting while you all talk some more.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
The reading this morning is entitled, "We Are Not Done," by Audette Fulbright Folsom, in memoriam Eric Greiner. Do not think we are finished. Oh no, we will never be finished, never just done, until the light of justice is lit behind every eye. Do not think we will be silent. No. There will not be silence until the world has sung the names of the dead with full throats, and still we will sing on. Do not think fear is the end of us. Oh, you are broken in mind and heart if you even imagine that our fear for our lives is the end of this story. We are braver than you have ever conceived, and you will not be the end of us. We have come to take back the world that is the inheritance of better children, better lovers, better days. There will be love again, but justice is our demand now. You will not take us down. We are endless, firelit, and determined, and we are coming for you.
We're gonna keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward.
The Edmund Pettus Bridge looms large in the history and legacy of the civil rights movement. You can see a picture of it on the cover of your order of service. It's a photo of the famous bridge that the civil rights marchers crossed in support of voting rights in 1965 on their march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. This bridge still sits on the edge of downtown Selma, and perhaps some of you have seen this bridge in person, on TV, or in the movie about Selma that was released a few years ago. I walked across this bridge with other UU ministers over 20 years ago when I was on a pilgrimage with other Unitarian Universalist ministers to civil rights places in Selma, Montgomery, and Birmingham. The UU Ministers Association held a convocation in Birmingham in 2001, and there was a pilgrimage to Selma and Montgomery the day after that convocation. Just the image of this bridge brings back intense memories of what we experienced that week and that day on that pilgrimage. The Edmund Pettus Bridge looms large, yet Edmund Pettus, the man whom the bridge is named for, was a Confederate Civil War general, a U.S. Senator from Alabama. He was also a Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. How ironic. Poor Edmund, he must be spinning in his grave to know that his name is now associated with one of the great chapters of the civil rights movement. This bridge, and all the bridges we have to cross in our lives, are emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually complicated. You know, we all have bridges we have to cross in our personal and collective struggle toward freedom and toward self-affirmation. We all have bridges we have to cross in our personal and collective search for meaning and wholeness and truth. We all have bridges we have to cross as we transform ourselves and our society to become the beloved community that Dr. King spoke of. This bridge can be a symbol for us, not only of the ongoing struggle for racial and social justice, but also of all of the other passages, all of the other crossings that we have to make. What are the bridges that you have to cross? What are the issues in your lives that need transforming? Where in your life are you not free? In need to take a risk and cross over, transcend some obstacle for the sake of your own wholeness and liberation. As you can see from the photo, the roadway on this bridge arches as it leads up over the bridge. When you and I begin to walk across any bridge between the place we are today and who we hope to become, we don't always know what we will encounter on the other side. We know on some level that this is the road to our own freedom. We know that this is what we must do, but we never really know what struggles or joys we will have to face on this journey. It takes much courage and hope to cross a bridge when you don't know what's on the other side. It takes much prayer and blessing to cross the bridge when you don't know what you will encounter. Before we begin this journey, we have to believe enough in ourselves and whatever is the dream of freedom and liberation that we strive for. On February 18, 1965, Jimmy Lee Jackson, a young African-American man who was a deacon in his church, was shot by state troopers after a voting rights march in Marion, Alabama. You may remember this scene from the movie Selma. The marchers were attacked by troopers, and Jimmy Lee and his family fled into a local cafe. They were chased by troopers, and Jimmy Lee was shot trying to protect his mother. He died a few days later. Dr. King and his advisors then decided that a way to bring attention to the lack of voting rights in the South was to stage a march from Selma to Montgomery, the state capital. The overt racism of Alabama's governor, George Wallace, some of us are old enough to remember him, and the institutional structures that kept people from being allowed to vote were well known. The brutality of the police and state troopers was well documented. There were, in fact, 3 marches, or at least 3 starts to this march. The first, held on March 7th, came to be known as Bloody Sunday, when the marchers were attacked as they came to the other side of the bridge. It was a horrific scene of violence without regard for the basic humanity of the men, women, and children who marched peacefully. But the curse of that attack became a blessing in disguise. Several news outlets were covering what was going on in Selma. People all over the country and all over the world witnessed the violent attacks against unarmed, nonviolent marchers on the evening news and in the local newspapers. White U.S. citizens seeing this horror had to face some of their own racial prejudices. They saw that people were being viciously cut down, people whose only offense was that they wanted the right to vote, a right that is guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution for all American citizens. Dr. King then called upon people of faith to join him in Selma with the words, the telegram that was used as our call to worship. Hundreds of clergy and lay people from every conceivable religious tradition went to join him in Selma. The Unitarian Universalist Board of Trustees were meeting in Boston at the time of Dr. King's call. The Reverend Dana Greeley, president of the UUA, suspended the meeting of the board, flew the whole board to Selma, and reconvened our board of trustees there. Dr. King then led the second attempt of the march on March 9th. When he could see the troopers with their sticks and batons waiting for them, Dr. King invited everyone to kneel down and pray on the bridge. The situation was still too dangerous. He then sought a court order and federal troops to protect the marchers. During that time, Unitarian Universalist minister James Reed, who ministered in Boston in a poor community in Roxbury, and a couple of friends were attacked by a mob as they were leaving a restaurant. Reed died a couple of days later, and Dr. King led his memorial service. On March 21st, the third march is launched. Protected by federal troops, they were able to make the journey to Montgomery without incident. There is joy and blessing among those who marched and their supporters. 3 attempts to cross the bridge, and the final one succeeds. But it is not without incident. There were several people who were using their cars to transport people back and forth between Montgomery and Selma, and one night one of those cars was attacked, and a woman named Viola Liuzzo, who was also a Unitarian layperson, was violently killed. Three attempts to cross the bridge. The final one succeeds. Isn't that true sometimes for us as well? When we have to take a risk to achieve a goal, we don't always succeed the first time. Sometimes we get scared and have to turn back. Sometimes we are battered and bruised along the way and are forced to stop our journey. And God willing, if we pull together our resources, if we gather the support that we need, if we face the challenge with faith and courage, we will eventually succeed on a journey to freedom and justice on which we have embarked. That summer, 1965, President Johnson pushed the Voting Rights Act through Congress. Yet now, 50-plus years later, some of the gains of the Voting Rights Act are still not fully enforced and are being eroded. New restrictions are placed on voters, and the federal protection for reviewing compliance has been struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. Voter districts are being gerrymandered to protect one political party or another. There are new laws now being passed in several states that restrict voting, and partisan election commissions are being established to undermine the independent election boards by reviewing ballots in order to suppress votes and overturn elections whose outcomes they don't like. This is scary stuff. And our hands, our hearts, and our voices will be needed to keep our democracy strong and free. The struggle for the right to vote. You know, it confounds me that there continues to be a struggle for one of the rights guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, but the struggle for the right to vote is a symptom of the racial inequality and prejudice that has marked our country since its first settlers arrived. It's a dysfunctional and destructive system that has continued to thrive despite our best efforts. The specter of police violence and brutality has garnered much attention lately. From Florida to Minneapolis, from Long Island to Ferguson, Black men are being shot and killed. We are beginning now to take notice of this as people did when they saw the overwhelming violence perpetrated in Selma and other civil rights marches. When I was on retreat a few years ago, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, our UUA president, our current UUA president, spoke to us of her experience during the white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Once again, people of faith came together to protest the racism and threat of violence perpetrated by white supremacist groups. And once again, the police did little to protect people. When I've seen protests and counter-protests in Boston and other places, the police form a barricade between opposing groups. That did not happen in Charlottesville. Susan reported that the police were at the outer edges of the field while religious leaders came face to face with a heavily armed and angry white supremacist mob. It's a wonder there were not more victims in Charlottesville that day. How is it that we have become so polarized as a people that we don't seem to have the ability anymore to share ideas with each other rationally? How is it that in the 50-plus years since the death of Dr. King, so little has changed in the continued oppression and threat of violence for people of color? What can we do today to honor and continue the march toward freedom and justice? I suggest we must examine ourselves and determine the changes that we need to make, the bridges that we need to cross in order to achieve these goals. We must engage in the same rigorous self-examination of the ways that each of us participates in the system that maintains the status quo and shuts out people of different races, sometimes genders, ethnic backgrounds, sexual identities. We must learn to build stronger connections with people of color and people who are different from us, and listen more deeply to their stories and their concerns. We must engage in deeper study and analysis of the structural injustices that form the basis of some of our institutions and work to change those. And we must always continue to march forward, to work for change together. An oft-quoted line from Dr. King is that the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice. I don't often say that when he found that line when he studied in Boston. It's actually a line out of the writings of the Reverend Theodore Parker, a UU theologian. But the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice. And we must remember that none of us are truly free until all of us are free. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be. Our closing hymn. Lift Every Voice and Sing is known as the African American National Anthem. The words are in your order of service. We invite people to read along, hum along. We can't do a lot of singing right now, but please know that these words are really powerful and have an incredible meaning for people of color in our society.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, fell in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a wave that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met be. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
This week, I, at a meeting of the Social Action Committee, I asked people on that committee to participate with me in a service I'm doing in a couple of weeks. And for us to reflect on what is it that calls us, that compels us to work for justice, for some area in the work of justice. And a few hours later, I received an email from Rick McDonald, chair of the committee. And I want to use an excerpt from what he wrote as our benediction this morning. After the 2020 election, I felt that maybe we were going to get back on the right track and work together for a common good for us and for the planet. I couldn't have been more wrong. Every day, every week, every month, it just seems to be getting worse and worse. The hate and disinformation that we are all bombarded with is numbing. I can only speak for myself, but I feel that if I do not stand up and do whatever I can to help stop the constant spread of lies, one day I will wake up and the America I grew up in the America that I protested so strongly about in the 1960s, will be gone, and it will be a hard battle to get it back. There are many important things we have to do on a day-to-day basis. But for me, there is nothing more important in this moment in time than protecting our democracy. Now is not the time for me to sit back and think this is someone else's responsibility. 2022 will be a defining moment for us. And I want to be able to look back and say to myself, at least I tried. Amen.